Hey everybody, Kurt here from the 410 Bridge. Thanks again for, the notes and the calls and the texts, checking on us, checking on the people we serve in the communities and the countries where we serve. We've been getting asked a lot for updates on what's happening in the variety of countries where we work. And so I wanted to put together a few videos, one for each country specific to that country. And so this video is for Kenya. I'll be doing separate videos for Haiti and Guatemala, and I hope to do those on a weekly basis as this crisis evolves in those countries. Currently in Kenya, there is about 25, couple dozen or so cases that have been reported. I'm not sure exactly what the proliferation of testing is in Kenya, but that of course drives the number of cases that have been identified. But the government has taken action. They have basically said that anybody coming into the country has to self-quarantine for 14 days. I believe they've shut down all international flights into Nairobi, into Kenya, any of the airports, but primarily Nairobi. And the next 2 weeks are critical, obviously, for them. We've been monitoring pretty closely, to the extent we can anyway, whether or not COVID-19 has spread to the communities, any indication that's gotten outside the city, because obviously these communities where we work are the most vulnerable communities in Kenya, certainly, and they're just not they don't have the capability to handle a massive outbreak of the virus in their communities. So we're watching and learning and waiting to hear any word we can from those communities and from Kenya, from our staff, about that. There are a couple big gaps currently going on in our communities. The primary one is food insecurity. So markets are closed. People can't gather in groups of greater than 10, I believe. And so food insecurity is a problem. Price gouging is happening in the rural communities, and the communities that are most immediately impacted are the arid and semi-arid communities. So these would be communities like Segera, Dubai. Those are the communities that are being impacted immediately with the food insecurity. So what we're trying to do about that is in the communities that are not, these would be the communities in kind of the higher elevations, the more fertile areas of Kenya where we work. These would be like Kahuria, our former communities that we graduated, Kwaba, Kenya, Karima, Korea. We're trying to see if we can figure out a way to either deliver food to our other communities in an arid and semi-arid areas, or if they can go and pick food up, and we would figure out how to get communities working together within the 410 Bridge network, which is pretty exciting. But that's in the works now with our staff. The other thing is that we're trying to source food from NGOs who do food insecurity issues, and we're also looking to use the remaining food, since the schools are closed, that we've stored for our school feeding programs, and trying to get children fed in a way that that is in abidance with the law, and they can still socially distance themselves and so forth. So we're looking at that currently. The other big gap is in education. Of course, the schools are closed. The government has started a program via the radio where they're at certain times teaching certain subjects via the radio. We're trying to get that word into our communities now and make sure that kids that have radios are listening and taking the time to hear the different subjects at the right time. We may also try to gather some limited number of students, keeping them again socially distant in appropriate ways, but having them come to the school and do small classes of 10 or less kids where we can hit certain subjects, maybe in the older grades. Not sure exactly how that's going to work yet, but our staff and our education team in countries looking at that. And then the other thing is that, not every student, of course, every household has a radio. So we're trying to source and find funding for and source solar-powered radios that we could distribute to communities. Again, if they can get into groups, kids can get into groups of less than 10 kids. Can they all listen to a radio and go through a lesson plan together? So we're looking at that as well. So we'd covet your prayers for, especially the food issue is obviously an immediate problem. Again, the markets are closed. I think that problem's only going to get worse. And so we're trying to figure out what, if anything, we can do about it. We are doing something about it, but I'll give you more of an update next week on how that turned out and kind of what we're planning on doing and so forth. The good news in many ways through this is that the body of Christ comes together in our communities. And so the church, we really see this as an opportunity for the church to be the hero in the community. So obviously, in everything, if you know us, you know that we try to get the churches to come together and unify around this community development effort. And while they're not doing community development currently, they are in this relief mode. And we believe the church can be the hub, the center, the focal point of that relief effort. So we're working closely with the churches. We're trying to make sure that we're hanging posters in the communities with hand washing instructions. What is COVID-19? What's the impact? What you should do if you show symptoms and so forth. We're doing all of that through the local church. And the other interesting thing is the community of Q, which is again in this semi-arid area south of Nairobi. They have started to mobilize their community to make soap and help us distribute that soap to the neighboring communities of Gamba and Q. We may get some of that soap and distribute it to other communities in other parts of Kenya, provided that we can still mobilize our staff in the coming weeks. And then the churches are putting together hand washing stations too, which is also pretty interesting. The word is getting out. Again, the word is getting out through the local church. The local church in these communities is critical to our success in those communities, and the leaders and the church leaders have stepped up in a big way. So we're grateful to them for that. So that's the current situation. Again, we just continue to covet your prayers. We are super grateful for your continued support, helping us in any way we can. This is really a tough time for everybody. We get it. But it is no less tough for the people living in our Kenyan communities, and we're doing everything we can to raise support and figure out how to mobilize that support specifically to the areas that need it the most, which would be these really vulnerable communities in Kenya. So thanks a lot. I'll be doing these probably weekly for the next few weeks at least, several weeks maybe, to give you an update of where we're at. And again, if you're interested and you partner with communities in Haiti and Guatemala, just look for those videos on this channel. Wherever you found this, look for those videos, and I'll be doing those shortly as well. Thanks again for all your support. We're grateful.